if you're talking about spreading your influence throughout the world and using that influence to aid and assist other countries, I think that's the role that they played, and I think that was a very good message, and it fits in nicely with sort of the mission of the UN as a whole.
And in what other ways, Paul, if you could expand, is China using investment, trade, and diplomatic tools to fill the gaps left by the U.S. as it pulls back?
Yeah, so it is, this America First plan that President Trump talks about, really in withdrawing from the international scene, is really end up going to be an America Last plan, because what it's doing is providing opportunity for other major nations, including China, to spread economic wealth and industry and development of all kinds of technologies into countries that the United States is withdrawing from. So there's going to be a vast absence of that across the world. As the United States withdraws, it's going to provide a tremendous opportunity for China to extend its influence and expend its technology and economic benefits to countries that the United States abandons.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit now and go back to U.S. President Trump and his rather fiery speech. I think we can all agree on that. What were the general reactions to it, and what was your reaction to it?
Well, the general reaction, given it was the United Nations, given it's a prestigious, very prestigious organization, the general reaction and my personal reaction is the same, and it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to me as a U.S. citizen. It was embarrassing for a couple of reasons. One, because he immediately started targeting the United Nations and insulting them, insulting other countries. He insulted the United Kingdom. He insulted China. He began insulting a lot of other countries. And, that's not the best way to make friends and influence people, is to throw insults around and he offered very little in the way of unity. So I think that the reaction across the United States has been one of largely embarrassment.
And more specifically, he criticized the UN as, quote, corrupt and ineffective. So what do these statements do for multilateral cooperation? That's the driving force, the driving principle of the United Nations.
Right. And as I said, in the past, people have looked to the United States and the President of the United States to do things that made multilateralism prominent and worthwhile. It's what, as you said, it's what the United Nations stands for. And everything he said in that speech was sort of against that or multilateralism. So from that point, it's not a good look. It's not what the United States has stood for in the past. And then when you put on top of that the number of repeated false statements that he made throughout the entire presentation that are so demonstrably false, it just showed more of the United States being a loner, and that's not the message that the United Nations stands for.
And Trump also doubled down on his belief in tariffs, these widespread tariffs he's inflicted on other countries. The OECD says U.S. import tariffs are at their highest since 1933, a long time. What are the likely economic risks for the U.S. and its trading partners who have been close trading partners with the U.S. for a long time?
Well, some of it isn't a risk. Some of it has actually happened. And, inflation is ticking up because of the increase in prices due to these tariffs, which are a tax on the American people. That's already happened. Energy prices are up. Even though President Trump said they were down. He said he had tamed inflation. That's not true. And so what it does was, as you increase tariffs, you break a supply chain. For instance, our soybean farmers used to send soybeans all across the world. And now, if you listen to the farmers, they can't sell their soybeans at all. And once those supply chains break and people decide, China, for instance, decides to buy their soybeans from Brazil, it's very difficult to renew that supply chain or restart that supply chain once it's cut. So it is impacting, we have not seen all the impacts. So the risks are very dangerous that you're breaking supply chains, that you're not going to be able to restart. And those farmers are going to be without customers in the future. And so it is very risky, very problematic. And it's sort of why tariffs have always been frowned upon in the United States, particularly these types of tariffs.
Paul, we just have 30 seconds to go. I know this is maybe a loaded question, but given these criticisms from Trump's speech, how does the U.S. preserve its role in international institutions right now?
Oh, that's a question that's going to take more than 15 seconds. But I will say it's you know, having worked for the Department of Justice, it used to be great to go around the world and speak about the prominence of the United States and anti-corruption and all of those things. It becomes much more difficult now, much more difficult. And I see it every day, and I talk to people every day in the government who are finding that out.